I have been to a plant down in Florida of a company that is producing electric cars and trying their very best to sell them. They are a French company based in France. But everybody is talking about electric vehicles now.
They're talking more about hybrids and plug-in hybrids, just because pure electrics still don't have the range. Someday again, they will, maybe. But now the vehicles that look to be the most important going forward are the hybrids, which combine a gasoline or diesel and electric engine, or the ones that essentially have a much smaller engine even than those, a gasoline engine or diesel engine, and essentially run largely on batteries. So, I mean, those technologies are coming, but quite frankly, however fast they come, it was too late to help General Motors. General Motors was shrinking. As she said, I have the numbers here. General Motors in 1978 had 611,000 American employees, U.S. employees. By 2008, it was 92,000.
Wow. Wow. And that's exactly where I want to go next, and that is the toll of this bankruptcy and the economic crisis being experienced in the United States now. So let's go to our next quote from the Michael Moore piece, Goodbye GM. He writes, "As I sit here in GM's birthplace, I'm surrounded by friends and family who are filled with anxiety about what will happen to them and to the town. 40% of the homes and businesses in the city have been abandoned. Imagine what it would be like if you lived in a city where almost every other house is empty. What would be your state of mind?" Diane, I'd like for you to tell us what the personal toll is that you see as you are in Michigan now.
Well, Detroit, like Flint, is about 40% abandoned. That means he just doesn't say in his quote there how much toxic waste there is in Flint. I imagine that's considerable. There's over 40,000 toxic waste dumps in the city of Detroit, along with that level of abandonment. So it means that there's approximately 25% official unemployment in the city of Detroit. It's about 13% in the state as a whole. And I would say that many workers in the auto industry simply don't know what to do, or are thrown back on their families and their individual solutions, going back to school. Many are going to become nurses, starting little businesses, but they're also facing foreclosures. There are 30,000 people in the city of Detroit who don't have water. That's a major problem. So we really live in an abandoned area, and in an area that shouldn't be abandoned. I do not believe that the government should give money to corporations that can then lay off people. It seems to me that if taxpayers are going to pay money, billions of dollars, that we should get something out of it. First of all, no layoffs. And secondly, if the plants are not producing the kinds of vehicles that are needed, we can produce many other things. And I would come back to the opportunity to be producing mass transit so that we can restart making buses, have light rail. But in addition, places like Michigan and Indiana are, Ohio are on the Great Lakes, so we should be making retrofitting our plants and be making other things that we need, like wind turbines, water turbines, solar panels.
Yes.
There's many things that we need in our society, and they are not all vehicles, not even green vehicles.
Diane, you mentioned the toxic waste, and of course this is something that we all should be concerned about. Is this toxic waste that has been generated by General Motors and the auto industry?
Well, by auto industry and the other industries in Detroit, which didn't start with the auto industry, but certainly the auto industry has played an enormous role in the city and in the part of the city that I live in. So yes, that's been very true of the parts industry and the big three.
I mean, there's a lot of nasty stuff produced as a byproduct and has been produced for over 100 years as a byproduct of making automobiles. There's a lot less of it now than there was in terms of new stuff, but there's a lot of stuff that's been put in the ground in a lot of places. When I was out, General Motors, they were beginning, not General, this was Ford was doing more of this. The government was putting in regulations on hazardous waste, defining what it was and how it had to be cleaned up, and so they were taking a lot of the things that had been dumped and putting it in contained sites that were lined and could be safe. But for example, up in Saginaw, Michigan, up further north, there's a big castings plant. Well, the EPA ruled that casting sand is a hazardous waste. So every time you cast an engine block, you basically generate a fair amount of casting sand. So they were having to figure out, first of all, how to make engine blocks without doing that, and they found a process. And then, but they had lots and lots of that stuff around.
Wow.
So, I mean, it's a function of having operated a very heavy industry system for 100 years.
And not really knowing what...
Well, some of it people suspected, some of it people maybe knew, some of it people were prepared to tolerate as long as there were jobs.
I see. Well, one of our reporters, Colin Campbell, had the opportunity to go to Capitol Hill. Let's see what his report contains.
I think the administration handled it properly. Going into bankruptcy is a way, I hope, to bring this company back.
Lawmakers react to General Motors' announcement that the 70-year-old car maker is bankrupt. With debt of more than $170 billion and assets of about $80 billion, the White House said it wouldn't put any more money into the failing company.
We gave them a chance to develop a stronger plan that would put them on a path toward long-term viability.
The bankruptcy filing displays an historic turn of events for a company that is still considered an American icon, but it's also a warning for the U.S. economy. Instead of vast successes, the company now symbolizes the country's economic challenges.
Well, I think it shakes people in my age group a little bit more than younger people who have seen a changing world and changing automobile world in their lifetime. I just think that the reality is those things are going to happen all the time.
After receiving billions in taxpayer dollars, General Motors' balance sheet problems will affect not only America, but the global economy. It will be forced to shut down more than 40% of its dealerships and lay off thousands of workers. Thousands of other workers from peripheral companies will be laid off as well. Some say the closures were a long time coming. Critics of the car industry say that car makers failed to make adjustments for fuel efficiency standards since the 1970s, setting them up for failures when fuel prices jumped like they did last year. Not only that, rising costs in health care are also hurting the U.S. economy. The impending layoffs are not adding to Americans' confidence either. In a Pew Research poll, Americans said they were less optimistic about their personal progress than at any time in a half-century of polling.
I'm not somebody who has been a proponent of jumping to bail out. I've got to make sure, as I've said earlier, that they have to have a long-term plan.
However, some lawmakers are optimistic about the future of America's economy.
We're seeing things, commodity prices go up, wheat prices go up, cattle prices stabilizing. I think all those are good signs.
Tough choices in a struggling economy, where the rubber meets the road in the 21st century. For Press TV, Colin Campbell, Washington.
Well, this is very interesting, and many of the people across the country are feeling that it's already a depression because they are experiencing the anxiety of unemployment or they are actually unemployed. Diane, could you talk to us about the feelings that people have about whether or not we're in a depression or is the United States headed toward a depression?
Well, that's difficult to know.